They called her the ship that burned in silence and somehow lived to tell about it. March 19th, 1945, 50 miles off the coast of Japan, the aircraft carrier USS Franklin cuts through grey water, stacked with bombs, aircraft, and nearly 3,000 men. None of them know they're about to face one of the most brutal attacks in naval history. It's 0654 hours. The sea is calm. The sky, a dull metal blue. On the flight deck, crews move like clockwork. Fuel hoses uncoiling. Bomb carts rattling. Propellers whining to life. The smell of aviation gas mixes with salt and coffee. Below deck, a radio man leans toward the green glow of his scope. Eyelids heavy. Nothing. Just the steady heartbeat of the ship. Clear deck in 3. Coffee's gone, Chief. Radar's clean. Tiny pieces of routine before chaos. A chaplain finishes his morning prayer over the intercom. Voice thin but steady. A few sailors touch small charms on their uniforms, tokens from home, from luck, from fear. They joke about the Franklin being a lucky ship, one that always limps home. No matter how bad the fight, no one laughs too loud. Superstition has weight out here. The first hint of unease rides the wind, a faint vibration through the deck, a shiver in the steel. A petty officer glances at the horizon and mutters, "Feels off today." Up on the bridge, Captain Leslie Garris scans the pale line where sea meets sky. Nothing but mist. For now, everything holds. Order, rhythm, confidence. But beneath it, something unseen is moving closer, and the Franklin's long morning is about to end in fire. The morning drifts on in routine, grey and uneventful. The sun rises, weak and colourless, glinting off the wet deck of the USS Franklin. Men move with quiet focus, fueling aircraft, checking flaps, trading a few lazy jokes through the intercom. Nothing feels urgent. Not yet. Inside the Combat Information Center, the radar scope hums in its low mechanical pulse. A green line sweeps the circle, steady as a heartbeat until it doesn't. The operator frowns. A blip flashes on the outer edge, then vanishes. "Contact! Wait! It's gone!" From across the room, a voice answers, half distracted. Phantom echo. Happens all the time, but the operator keeps staring. Something felt different, the kind of flicker you feel more than see. He marks the bearing anyway. Minutes later, the line sweeps again, and this time, the contact returns. Closer. Low altitude. Too steady for weather. "Sir, new bogey Angels 1000, bearing 235. A pause. Footsteps. Approach behind him. The watch officer leans over his shoulder. "Could be one of ours returning." The operator hesitates. "Negative IFF." No response. The words hang heavy. Negative identification. Friend or foe. Silence settles in the CIC. A young seaman nearby swallows hard. On the bridge, the report crackles through. Captain Garris straightens. "Visual confirmation?" "None yet, sir. Probably a single aircraft." Then another voice cuts in. "Second contact just popped up. Same vector. Faster." The captain turns toward the horizon. Binoculars up. From the deck, the sky looks empty, just pale cloud and glare. But in that glare, a black speck glides down like an insect on glass, growing larger every heartbeat. He lowers the binoculars. Sound general quarters. A deep bell tolls across the Franklin. Men drop tools. Voices harden. The calm morning cracks open. And somewhere in that blank sky, death is already diving. The first explosion doesn't sound like an explosion. It's a low, hollow thud, like the sea itself, exhaling, then a roar that splits the morning in half. A single Japanese dive bomber, unseen until the final second, drops from the clouds. Its bomb punches straight through the USS Franklin's flight deck, vanishing into her belly before anyone can shout a warning. Then detonation. The hangar deck erupts. A rolling orange wall of fire devours everything it touches. Men vanish in the flash. Aircraft stacked with fuel and ordnance ignite in a chain of instant chaos. The shockwave rips through steel and bone alike, hurling men off their feet. slamming doors shut, shattering eardrums. "Get down. Fire in the hangar." The intercom crackles once and dies. Up on the bridge, Captain Garrus feels the deck lurch under his boots. The horizon tilts, the air shimmers with heat, and the sound that endless, hungry roar swallows all words. For a long second, no one moves, just disbelief. Then training takes over. Orders fly. Damage control. Forward section. Secure the magazines. Seal the hatches. Below, sailors crawl through smoke thick enough to taste, their flash hoods glowing orange from reflected flame. A young crewman drags a hose line toward the inferno, trips, gets back up, keeps crawling. Another grips a wrench so hard his knuckles bleed. Daylight turns copper red through the smoke vents. The Franklin has become a volcano fire, pushing skyward, steel bleeding downward. Men stumble through corridors that no longer look like corridors. One reaches for a bulkhead that's too hot to touch. In the Combat Information Center, the radar scope flickers once more, then goes dark. The hum that filled the room for hours is gone. Only static remains. On the flight deck, what was moments ago a place of order and precision is now a furnace. The ocean glitters around her, indifferent, reflecting flames that rise hundreds of feet into the air. The ship still floats, but in that moment, no one is sure for how long. The Franklin is alive, but not with men. With fire. From bow to stern, the carrier groans like something wounded. Flames race through open hatches, crawl up ladders, and burst from vents like the breath of a furnace. Secondary explosions ripple through the hangar decks, fuel tanks, ammunition crates, and torpedoes cooking off in random, deafening rhythm. Each blast is a heartbeat of destruction. Forward elevators gone. Get the wounded out of there. Keep the hoses moving. Fire crews stumble through smoke that turns daylight to midnight. Helmets glisten with sweat and soot. Men form human chains, passing buckets, extinguishers, and hope down narrow corridors. The heat warps steel and skin alike. When a hose bursts, someone jams a rag in the split and keeps spraying. No one stops. Down below, compartments flood with choking smoke. Electric lights blink and die, leaving only the red glow of flame bleeding through seams. In one mess hall, a sailor ties a wet rag around his face and crawls on his hands and knees, pulling an unconscious shipmate behind him. Another kicks open a hatch and shouts, "This way!" his voice shredded by smoke. The narrator's lens drifts through these pockets of struggle. A mechanic swinging a fire axe at a jammed door. A signalman using his own shirt to bind a burn. An engineer refusing to abandon a pump. Still coughing water into the inferno. Each man fights a private war measured in inches and breaths. Above deck, the air shimmers from heat. The ship's island leans under the strain of twisted metal. One fire finally dies, only for two more to ignite. But somewhere amid the chaos, a rhythm begins to return. Orders ring clearer, hoses hold pressure. The Franklin, for all her wounds, still answers her crew. The ship that should be dying is starting to fight back. The bridge is no longer a command post, it's a ghost room suspended in smoke. Visibility, 0. Every window glows with reflected flame. The air tastes of metal and salt, hot enough to blister. Captain Leslie Garrus stands at the center. Coat gone, face blackened with soot. His voice is the only solid thing left. Report. Hangar 3 gone, sir. Boiler rooms holding. Magazine 2, still flooding. Each sentence breaks apart in static. Radios cough half words before dying. The sound of burning fuel drowns everything else. Helm, can you steer? Negative, sir. Steering sluggish. Then keep her into the wind. We lose that. We lose the ship. Outside, the Franklin rolls in, a slow, wounded circle. Smoke trailing miles behind her. From above, she'd look less like a warship and more like a volcano adrift. Garrus grips the bridge railing, steadying himself as another shockwave shakes the deck. He turns to his exec, a young officer, with blood on his collar, and says quietly, "They're still firing hoses below. That means we're still alive. Sir, the forward elevators are gone. Then we fight with what's left." An aide appears out of the haze, eyes wide. "We can't raise the engine room." Garrus snaps back. "Then run down there if you have to." No silence on this ship. He stares out through the smoke again, seeing nothing but orange blur, listening to the faint thunder of detonations echoing down the hull. For a fleeting second, he imagines the Franklin as she was this morning, clean, disciplined, untouchable. Then the illusion fades in the firelight. He adjusts his cap, voice steady again. "Keep her steady. We're not done yet." The captain disappears into the fog, chasing command through the chaos. The flight deck looks like a battlefield, half metal, half fire. The air is thick with heat and the smell of burning fuel. Shattered planes smolder where they fell, their wings curled like paper. Through the haze, a handful of men move with deliberate care, faces wrapped in soaked rags. They aren't firefighters or engineers. They're volunteers. Someone had shouted it minutes ago. "There are live bombs up here." The hangar explosions had thrown a dozen 500-pounders across the deck. Some lie dented, their fins twisted, their fuses still armed. Any spark could end it. A petty officer kneels beside one, hands trembling as he touches the casing. The steel is blistering hot. "Crowbar." A sailor slides one toward him, eyes wide. "Think it's gonna cook off?" The petty officer exhales through his rag. Only one way to find out. They form a line, 3 men, then 5, rolling the first bomb inch by inch toward the edge. Deck plates burn through their gloves. Another man sprays water ahead of them, buying seconds of safety. When the bomb reaches the lip, they heave together, shouting through the smoke. It tumbles overboard, vanishing into the sea below with a muted splash. They don't cheer. They just turn to the next one. Halfway through, a damaged fuse starts to hiss, metal pinging under heat. Everyone freezes. A second drags into forever. Then the youngest man, barely 20, kicks the wheel chock away and throws his shoulder into it. The bomb rolls slow, steady, then disappears over the side just as the timer sparks and dies in the water. For a heartbeat, the men just stare at each other through the smoke. No words, just shared breath. Then the petty officer mutters, low but certain, "We still got a ship. Let's keep her that way." And they go back to work. The Franklin drifts through smoke so thick it blots out the sun. From above, the carrier looks like a dying ember floating on steel blue water. From below, she feels alive, trembling, groaning, refusing to die. Overhead, the air battle rages unseen. Friendly fighters claw through haze, trading fire with Japanese bombers hidden in cloud. The sky flashes white, then red, then disappears again. To the men below, it sounds like thunder in another world. On the flight deck, every surface glows dull orange. The ship's engines cough and shudder, barely alive, just enough to keep her pointed into the wind. Burnt fuel drips through deck seams like black rain. Below deck, the real war continues. Corridors crawl with medics dragging stretchers through waist-high water and smoke. The air is so thick that lanterns barely cut through it. Someone coughs until blood sprays across his sleeve. The chaplain moves among them, voice hoarse but steady, whispering prayers over men too far gone to hear him. "Hang in there, son. Just hang in there." A sailor grips his arm, eyes glassy. "Is the ship still afloat?" The chaplain nods once. "She is." The sailor exhales, a faint smile on burned lips. "Then so am I." In the ordnance bay, sparks fall from overhead pipes onto a crate marked 1,200-pound bombs. 2 crewmen grab soaked tarps and throw themselves over it, smothering flame with their own bodies. The fire dies and both men collapse beside it, half conscious, still holding the tarps down. Up on the bridge, Captain Gires watches tracer fire cut through clouds above them. Tiny white streaks in a dark sky. "Those are our boys," he mutters, almost to himself. "Keep her steady." The Franklin drifts forward, somewhere between heaven and hell, her engines beating faintly like a broken heart. Every man aboard knows she's one spark away from ending. And yet, somehow, she keeps moving. By noon, the USS Franklin is half a ship and half a memory. Smoke pours from her hull in black spirals, rising into a sky that can't decide if it's day or dusk. The The decks are gutted, the air unbreathable, and yet somehow she still floats. In the chart room, senior officers argue over a table that's covered in ash instead of maps. One insists they can't save her. The fires are too deep, too many compartments flooded, communications down. "We've done what we can," he says, voice breaking. "It's time to abandon ship." The words hang in the air like a death sentence. Captain Guerres stares at the table, motionless. The deck tilts under his boots as another explosion echoes below. He knows the risk. He knows what's left. But then he looks through the shattered porthole at the ocean, beyond the same cold grey that's claimed hundreds of other ships this year, and something inside him hardens. "As long as she floats," he says quietly, "she fights." "No." One breathes for a moment. Then an officer nods. Another follows. A runner bolts to the intercom. "All hands, Captain," says we stay with her. On the flight deck, the message spreads, faster than fire. Men who were seconds from climbing into lifeboats stop and turn back. Fire hoses sputter to life again. Ammunition is hauled clear of the flames. A young sailor slaps another on the shoulder and grins through the soot. "Guess we're not done yet." Even the wind seems to shift, pushing smoke away from the bow. The Franklin steadies herself in the waves, battered but unbroken. All across her decks, the crew moves as one every man, a reason the ship still lives. And for the first time in hours, the fire begins to lose. By late afternoon, the sound changes. No more explosions, no more screaming steel, only the soft hiss of water against heat, the sound of fire dying. The USS Franklin drifts under a pale sky, her outline barely recognizable. The proud flight deck is warped and cratered, the island tower scorched to the bone. Smoke still seeps from open hatches, curling into the wind like ghosts leaving the ship. The men emerge slowly from the lower decks, faces streaked with soot, uniforms torn, eyes red from smoke and exhaustion. They don't speak. They just look around at what's left. The carrier that had once bristled with power now lies silent, like a giant, exhaling its last breath. A petty officer kicks aside twisted cable and stops when he sees something caught against the rail, a tattered piece of fabric, edges burned, colors half gone. The American flag. He lifts it carefully, the cloth still warm from the fires. Word spreads across the deck. Without a command, a few men gather near a bent signal pole, blackened but still standing. The petty officer ties the flag to the line, and with help from two others, begins to raise it. The fabric catches the faint wind, unfolding slowly through the haze. Red, white, and blue against the grey. Every man on deck stops what he's doing. No cheers, just stillness. Captain Guerres steps forward, removes what's left of his cap, and stands at attention. Around him, hundreds do the same. The flag reaches the top of the pole, torn, scorched, stubbornly flying. In that moment, there are no ranks, no orders, no words. Just the ship and her men, alive together after hell. For the first time all day, the Franklin is quiet. Evening settles over the Pacific like a curtain of ash. The ocean, once alive with smoke and thunder, lies calm again. Out of the haze come the silhouettes of rescue ships, tugs and destroyers closing in, their decks crowded with men staring in disbelief. Against all logic, the USS Franklin is still afloat. She lists slightly, her decks burned black, her hull scarred from bow to stern. The air smells of salt and fuel and grief. But the fires are out. The wounded have been carried clear. The living line, the rails in silence as the tugs throw their lines across. A voice over a handheld radio begins to read the casualty count, each name a fragment of the ship herself. 200 killed, hundreds more wounded. Each number lands like another weight on the heart. Yet each survivor knows what it means to still be standing. As the Franklin is slowly pulled towards safer waters, the sun breaks through the smoke for the first time in hours. Its light touches the flag still hanging on the tracting, bent mast, now waving weakly in the wind. The reflection ripples across the water, golden and fragile. The narration widens, steady and reverent. War builds machines, but it's men who keep them alive. Steel can melt, Engines can fail, but courage doesn't. When everything burned, they stayed. When the sea demanded silence, they answered with fire. The camera drifts back, the Franklin growing smaller in the distance, her wake glowing red beneath the fading sky. In a sea of fire, they chose to stand their ground. Remember them, share their story so their courage sails farther than their ship ever did.